Scripps News special coverage continues tonight out of Georgia, the Fulton County Courthouse. This was the scene where today the grand jury heard testimony from multiple witnesses, and then they returned a verdict. They approved an indictment that has 10 counts in it. The wording in that indictment and the subjects of it have not yet been revealed, so we are covering that live as it does come in tonight. But in the meantime, the Trump campaign is already responding, and we want to read parts of it to you. This is a pretty robust response that they put out, so let me just read you what they have here. Quote, like Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, deranged Jack Smith, and New York AG Letitia James, Fulton County GA's radical Democrat District Attorney Fani Willis is a rabid partisan who is campaigning and fundraising on a platform of prosecuting President Trump through these bogus indictments. Continues, all of these corrupt Democrat attempts will fail. They go on and on from there, but that's just part of it. Welcome back. Good to have you with us here tonight as we hang on, as we wait for more news out of Fulton County, Georgia, believe it or not, late into the night.
That's it. Something we thought, was going to last a little bit later into the week. We started seeing some movement a bit earlier. Lasted
late into the night instead.
That's it. With the judge popping in on some of the reporters in the courthouse. Yeah. So much of this, there are things that we were expecting. An indictment day, or possible indictment day, there's a lot of activity. But so much of what we saw today was not business as usual, a bit unusual. We saw inside the courtroom as well. So interesting the way that things have played out so far.
Absolutely. Speaking of interesting, let's get to Andrew Lieb, because Andrew, you've been involved in tons of cases in the past. This one kind of stands out, not that it only involves a former president, but the visibility we had into the process, unlike all of these other indictments. Does that strike you?
Well, it's real odd to me, Chance, because I'm a New Yorker, and New York state courts, just like federal courts, don't allow all this visibility that we're seeing today. Even just seeing the judge, we saw Judge McBurney joking with the reporters there. They said, "Can you tell us what it says?" He goes, "I didn't get a look." And at one point he goes, "That's it." And while it's great to see a humanistic side of a judge, and I like that aspect, I would say that this is shaping up to be in Georgia perhaps the most living room trial that we've had since OJ Simpson. And while that wasn't politically expedient, we can all remember the line of, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And we're going to see a lot of this play out. So back to that clip you said about Trump's team putting out a statement and calling them Democrats and doing this there. The fact of the matter, and this is something Trump's team needs to be mindful of, in Georgia, the evidence, the facts, the process is going to be available to the public. So you can only spin it so much ways when everyone could see what really happens. From Trump's perspective, I hope the evidence works well for him. From Fani Willis's, I hope the evidence works out for them. But as my father, who founded my law firm, always liked to say, the wheels of justice move exceedingly slow, but exceedingly fine, gentlemen.
And we saw that with the OJ Simpson case. I mean, this case could have been a lot more brief, a lot of experts said. It got dragged out, and maybe the cameras did not help matters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being able to see today is not something that I was really expecting, but again, it gave us a sense of, what some of the other folks are going through, what they witnessed as well. I want to bring in political director Andrew Rafferty here for a moment. Just this past weekend, we saw Republican presidential candidates descend on Iowa, and I'm sure that a potential indictment was a bit of a talking point. Can you give us a sense of how other candidates have been looking at a potential fourth indictment for the former president, and what they have said to either boost themselves or back the president, or the former president, rather?
Yeah, well, Christian, I remember not too long ago, you and I were talking to a presidential candidate right after the indictment here in D.C. that was a similar subject matter. It had to do with Donald Trump's alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. And it was Asa Hutchinson, who has been one of the more outspoken critics of Donald Trump in the Republican field, maybe right behind Chris Christie and perhaps a Will Hurd. And, the interesting question that we posed to him was just this idea of how do you even have a message, get it out if you're one of these low polling candidates in the single digits like he is, when all the attention, all the oxygen gets sucked out whenever we see these types of big events, because they are historic and they deserve the level of coverage that we're giving it. But if you're a Republican trying to break through, it makes it really, really tough.
You know, I'm awfully curious about how people who live in Fulton County, average citizens who get that envelope in the mail and say, come to jury duty, and you might be sitting in that box with the former president in front of you, how this is going over there. Del Walters is on the ground right outside the courthouse, and right after this break, we're going to talk to him about how this is going in Atlanta.